Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hello there.
Garlic cake, the human being Valerie from Earth program Blue Peter has made. Yes, but I think there is too much chocolate.
Hi there guys, it's Adam Martin here and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about Blue Peter. In case you didn't know, Blue Peter is a children's show here in the UK. It's one of, if not the longest running children's show here in the UK. It first went on the air all the way back in 1958, which is, almost 70 years ago we're coming up to. It features a rotating line of presenters through the years, doing a bit of all sorts really, different challenges, showing you how to make things, covering relevant topics of the day. It really was a bit of an all sorts show, but particularly in its first, 40, even some would say 50 years on the air, it was quite a important show for the BBC and just for children's programming in general. And as I said, as of 2025, it is still going on the air, but it has made the news once again, and not necessarily for the most positive of reasons. A couple of days ago, I started seeing posts on different social media sites and different media outlets saying that Blue Peter was finished, it was over, it was coming to an end, after 68 years, it was time to wrap up, and naturally that raised my eyebrows because I watched this show. I think my viewership was mainly, say, between 2000, 2006, 7 maybe, during that era, and even with all the new technology that was dawning, I loved the program and I loved tuning into it. So what exactly is going on? Well, we have an article from the BBC themselves which says Blue Peter will lose live magic, which is said by an ex-host. So let's see what's going on here. Former Blue Peter presenter Janet Ellis has said the show will lose some of its live magic after the BBC confirmed it will move to a fully pre-recorded format, having filmed its last live episodes after 67 years. So that seems to be what the major hoo-ha is about. Blue Peter was always famed, again, throughout a lot of its early life, for all of its episodes were live. Now, when it started back in the late 50s, that was bygone, the only way to do it was to do it live. Videotape was only just starting to come in. And even when videotape started becoming the dominant format to make programming in a pre-recorded style, Blue Peter, more often than not, would remain live, apart from special circumstances or occasions. So this move for this show, because, to do a live show like this for kids is getting rarer and rarer, to make this move to fully pre-recorded is a big deal. The longest running children's show in the world, which first aired in 1958, has been a mix of live and pre-recorded shows for decades, the corporation said. And again, it might have been like that for decades, but to my knowledge, the vast majority has always been live, and we've been gradually moving to this pre-recorded model. It's decided to put an end to its live episodes as viewing habits change. Ellis, who once had to handle a tarantula live on the show, told BBC Radio 4's Today programme on Monday, "I feel sorry for this generation of presenters who aren't going to feel that thrill. There is something of an adrenaline rush to doing things live because things can go wrong. But I think it's also the magic when they go right," she added. "It's the best example of teamwork I can think of because you're just as important as everyone else in the studio. And I'm sure there were nervous cameramen, but we all had to do it together and no one could go again because it wasn't quite right the first time." And as a performer myself, not necessarily, in front of TV like Blue Peter, but I can attest that the thrill of doing something live, whether it's on the theatre or on TV, is a really unique one. And I can imagine those presenters who did do Blue Peter live, can echo what Janet Ellis is saying here. Whilst pre-recorded methods are obviously great because you can edit out mistakes and you can make it a lot more slick, I do think for a show like Blue Peter, as Janet says, that often thrived off the fact that it was live, I think it will feel quite different here. Ellis worked on the show from 1983 to 1987, in the days before autocues and producers talking in presenters' ears. She suggested the jeopardy and magic created in live moments is probably the reason why up until now it has continued to be live in the face of everything else changing around it. But despite the changes to the filming format, she said Blue Peter remains a timeless show. So, in theory, it is going ahead. I do have my concerns for the show in the long term, as I do for children's television in the UK in general. We do know from the past few years that the whole idea of it has sort of been under threat or being squeezed in recent years. So I want to talk about my fears later on in the video. But for now, let's carry on with the article. Regarding the Golden Age, fellow former presenters Simon Thomas and Richard Bacon expressed their disappointment at the news over the weekend, with Bacon saying that being live is what made it alive. Thomas, who's now a Sky Sports presenter, posted on Instagram, so we all start somewhere. We probably didn't realise it at the time, but we were working in the last years of the golden age of children's TV, a time when children's programmes filled the afternoons and Saturday mornings on BBC One and ITV. An era when audiences were measured in the millions rather than the thousands. Well, I think they are still measured in the millions, are they not? You know, that's what we have the Barb rating systems for. Granted, for kids' TV, you don't often see them in the top programmes, so maybe it is more in the thousands when it comes to that. I don't say the golden age in an arrogant way, but everything is fragmented now, and the way children consume entertainment has changed forever. There will never be another era like it again. And I mean, he is right to some degree. Just the changing nature of things from analog to digital, the introduction of the internet, the prevalence of technology that kids have. You know, it's not just TVs anymore. Richard Bacon said he loved the long-running series. He described it as a big, well-made, lovingly made, really well-resourced live kids TV show that had been live in that building for decades. It was a magical experience for, you know, all of 20 months. That's because, oh god, here we go, the presenter was sacked from the show in the late 90s after admitting drug taking, but returned for its 60th anniversary receiving a famous Blue Peter badge. Well, you know what? He got his badge back in the end. God, that was a whole scandal. So basically, Richard Bacon took, you know, a series of, I think it was Class A drugs at the time, I can't quite remember, but basically he took drugs. Obviously, being a presenter of one of the biggest kids' TV shows on the BBC, that was a big no-no, and he was promptly sacked from the show. It was such a big scandal at the time, and unfortunately for Blue Peter, it came around their 40th anniversary. It was 98, I think. It even had this response from the head of children's BBC, Lorraine Heggessey, where she basically apologised to the viewers.
Hello, I'm Lorraine Heggessey and I'm Head of Children's Programmes at the BBC. Many of you will have watched Blue Peter last Friday and joined in our 40th birthday party. It was right that Blue Peter should be celebrating its many achievements of the past 40 years, and we were delighted to be presented with a special award at this week's Children's BAFTAs. But many of you will know that there has been a sad event too. One of the Sunday newspapers reported that Richard Bacon, a Blue Peter presenter, had taken an illegal drug. Richard admits that he has done this and that he very much regrets it. However, I believe that Richard has not only let himself and the team on Blue Peter down, but he's also let all of you down badly. So we have decided that Richard cannot continue to present Blue Peter, and he agrees that that is the right decision. We're all very sorry and upset about this, but I can assure you that everyone on Blue Peter will be working hard to make sure that it continues to be one of your favourite programmes.
It's very strange, even to this day, that a channel controller would have to come on children's TV to do it. The Blue Peter presenters of the day also addressed it very briefly, and some would argue they just handled it in a much better, more concise way. I'll play it for you now. See what you think. Decide for yourself.
As you probably know, Blue Peter has been in the news a lot recently. Firstly, last week we were celebrating our 40th birthday.
We were indeed. On Sunday, we were very pleased to receive this great award. It's a special award from BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, for Blue Peter's outstanding services to children's television over the past 40 years.
But there was also some sad news. You'll no doubt have heard that Richard is no longer on the programme.
Yes, he agrees he had to leave, and like you, we are really going to miss him. Thank you for all your letters and emails that have been flooding in.
Yep. We'll see you on Friday, so until then, take care.
See ya.
Bye.
But yes, even Blue Peter, you know, this very innocent kids' TV show, isn't even far from scandal. In terms of future-proofing the show, Blue Peter, which features viewer and presenter challenges, interviews and animal action, will continue to be filmed in Salford and broadcast on cbbc and BBC Two, as well as on the iPlayer. The programme has been a mix of live and pre-recorded shows for decades and has transitioned to a pre-record model as viewing habits change, said a BBC spokesperson. So the whole thing about it changing to pre-recorded because of viewing habits, I totally get that, you know, a lot of children these days, they're not going to... how shall I put this? They're not going to necessarily watch things live because, you know, even when I was a kid, we had VHS tapes to record off, but ideally, if you wanted to watch a program like Blue Peter, you were best to watch it live, and because the show was live, it further enhanced that. But now, you know, with the iPlayer, you don't have to watch it live, and I wonder how many kids actually do watch it live. So it probably makes the people behind Blue Peter think, well, you know, how long do we have to keep doing this live? If the majority of our audience is doing it on catch-up or something like that, then surely pre-recording it is a better model. You could also argue, you know, for whatever reason, whether it be emergencies or presenter illness last minute, you know, things like that, having a pre-recorded model just, you know, gives it that extra bit of security. But I do think the major disadvantage, as former presenters have said, is just, and it's mainly for the presenters, I think, but it is that thrill of doing it live and the fact that things can and often did go wrong. I mean, there's several Blue Peter clips out there on the internet of things going wrong, like the campfire, for instance.
We are, if you're happy and you know it, say we are. We are, if you're happy and you know it, then you surely want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, say we are. We are, if you're happy and you know it, all right. We are, if you're happy and you know it, all right.
We're on fire. We're on fire, so we'll just get the firemen in behind. What a performance. I think he's won. Oh, I think we've won in the end. Never mind. All right.
Everybody's coming on the act.
That was super. Yes.
Thank you very much. Great finale to that song, wasn't it?
Or need I bring up the elephant?
She hasn't got any tusks, and actually in Ceylon, even the male elephants don't have tusks.
Oh,
and,
we're having a slight penny down here. A slight problem.
Get out of the way, I think.
You're supposed to be drinking it, Lulu.
It happens to all elephants, no doubt.
Alec, thank you very much indeed.
There's just several things, but again, those are the moments that have made it stand out over the years, and quite rightly so. Blue Peter continues to be loved by generations across the UK, the spokesperson says. As we continue to navigate a challenging market and young audience viewing habits evolve, it's necessary to make some changes to ensure that BBC Studios Kids and Family Productions delivers a dynamic, digital-first brand that will future-proof the show and sustain its legacy for years to come. See that digital-first thing coming again. So there were some erroneous reports that Blue Peter was just going to be moved fully online, and it seems that that isn't the case. As the spokesperson said, it's still going to be on cbbc and BBC Two as well as the iPlayer. But like I said earlier, it does bring about this question of the future of children's TV in general here in the UK. Now, almost 3 years ago, back in 2022, we heard initial reports that cbbc, alongside some other channels like BBC4, would eventually stop being traditional terrestrial channels and move to an online-only model. Now, at that time, it was projected it would be around now, around 2025. Well, we're in 2025, we're almost a quarter of the way through it, and to my knowledge, that hasn't happened. There was an article some time ago where a spokesperson said we're sort of keeping these channels on air a bit longer than we thought, which is always positive, but it does make me wonder. I don't think this is a long-term reprieve. I would not be surprised if by 2030, by the time this decade's out, that transition has happened, that cbbc has fully moved to becoming a online-only channel. And some would say this is the right thing to do, some would say this is the wrong thing to do. It really depends. I can sort of see both sides. The digital first strategy, again, all the broadcasters are doing this. Viewing habits are changing. Less and less people across all demographics are watching traditional terrestrial television in the way we used to do for decades. They like the freedom. They like watching shows when they like, based off the streaming models. So I can understand why the BBC wants to do that. But I think especially for children's programming, for children's entertainment in the UK, I think it's a massive shame and a loss, because often, whether it was the BBC or CITV, you could often rely on the traditional broadcasters to provide children's programming that was both high quality but also just really good for kids in general, whether it had an educational slant to it or whether it was a show that dealt with very hard-hitting topics in a very mature yet accessible way. Do you know what I mean? You could often rely on those broadcasters, and true, there was the regulation in place, but I feel if we lose that main access via television where parents can just flick on the telly and bam, there's CBBC, there's CBeebies, whatever, I really think we're going to lose something. And also the rich legacy that kids TV has in this country, to lose that would be a phenomenal loss entirely. So for Blue Peter, I mean, the fact it's still going and is near 70 years old, it's lasted a lot longer than I think many naysayers would have predicted. It seems its future is somewhat secure again. There's going to be no more live episodes, so in terms of that, it is the end of that era after 67 years. But the show may live to see its 70th birthday. Whether or not it's going to live until the 2030s and beyond, we'll have to wait and see. But it looks increasingly tenuous with moves like this. But anyway, that is all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like on it. It really does help us out. Thank you as always for your support on the channel. It's really great to see. And leave a comment down below. What do you think about this decision from the Beeb about axing live Blue Peter episodes? Do you think it's the right choice, the wrong choice? Do you think the show has much of a future going forward? Let me know all of that in the comments down below. Subscribe to us as well if you're brand new. We'd love to have you aboard. And in the meantime, I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Sean Knock, Dord Khan, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Liam Domain, AJ Mac 200017, Deck, Jen, Traffy, Evan Hart 41 Radio, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Marnanel Thurman, John Wakefield, 40-something Manchild, Jerry Ralph, John McLeod, James Wallace, Ben, Kat Hegarty, Stephen Oliver, Tegan, Shadow Fiend 180X, Swan Ronson, Adam Gamer, Fonzie Daz, Seraphic Euphoria, John, Matthew Elliff, and Pigeon's House, are AMTV staff members.